All right, so let's talk about let's do a little double feature here for a sec, right? So we will start off with the Oscar nominee American Fiction, and we will
Yeah.
segue into the Book of Clarence, right? So American Fiction. Saw the trailer. I will actually say I should say sorry. Shout out to Tracy, Hutchins for putting me on to the first trailer. I saw that. I saw my boy Jeffrey Wright. I was like, all right, this looks really good. Very
Yeah.
confrontational, very real. You know what I mean? Very contemporary in terms of what it's talking about. I had to talk about the marketing of that film in my review, right? Um,
Right.
but yeah, I really wanted to see it, but I knew I think it's because of the release date that it coming out in December last year. I knew he wasn't gonna get that in cinema down here at all. Not even
All right.
just December, but this period, right? So yeah, surprise, surprise, it did not come out here theatrically. Because honestly, I don't think people would come to see a show like this, to be honest. But I don't know, right?
Right.
But by years end, I was hearing a lot of great things about it. I know it showed up a lot of people's top 10, so I was even more excited. And then the excitement level raised now even more because it get nominated for awards, right? So I'll talk about
Which
that
it
in a second.
deserves.
Yes, original
Yeah,
score,
we want to talk about it. Yeah.
yeah, original score, adapted screenplay, best supported actor for we boy Sterling K. Brown, best
Which
actor.
I totally understand. I totally understand why it is winning. When I saw what the ending is, I like, yeah, okay, I understand why this get a
Uh huh.
take a Hollywood like this self. So yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Best actor, of course, to Jeffrey Wright, and
Right.
best picture. I was like, all right,
Yeah.
something like this, okay. So
Yeah.
I was waiting patiently, and then finally came out digitally, right? Well, I know you saw it before me, so I know you have more time to think about it because I literally saw this yesterday of us recording
Okay.
this,
Okay.
right? So yeah, Ricardo, take it away. What is American Fiction about, man?
Sure. So we follow Jeffrey Wright as Thelonious Ellis or Thelonious Monk Ellis, which is I like. I like that. He's like, oh, why they call it a monk? Oh, his name is Thelonious. Okay, that's funny. I like that. Yeah, he's this really stick in the mud kind of well, I said Thelonious Ellis, Thelonious Ellison, sorry, confusing that with Tracy Ellis Ross, whoever. Um, but yeah, he working in Hollywood as a writer. He's a smart writer, even though he's a black writer. He don't write about quote unquote black things in the stereotypical American sense. But he get in a lot of trouble, with selling his books or whatever it is. He had to go back to. He gets into a little bit of trouble because of a student, not liking the use of the N word in class, and he's like, no, is Southern American, material literature. You have to talk about it. You have to use the word nigger. Sorry, and he's flippant about the attitude about it, but he was like, yeah, he's actually correct about it. But he got into a little bit of trouble. They didn't let him go fire him. They just tell him to take a little break. And he goes back to Boston because he had to do a couple things there anyway. But he didn't want to do it because he had a strange with his family, somewhat strained relationship with his family, and then basically that's where everything comes together because a bunch of financial problems and issues and a family tragedy happens that puts him in a kind of tight spot with respect to money. So he's like, well, let me do something, pull a kind of dumb little stunt, and it ended up working. In the i.e., he decided to write a quote unquote stereotypically black thing and it ended up selling, and he wanted to make it, he get financially access to a lot of stuff, and that's where it builds from there because now he gets into a bunch of interesting ethical constraints and problems and issues, not only with just the money but just something involving him as a judge or basically in a conflict of what's called it by a conflict of interest, not just the money but a conflict of interest situation involving the book that he wrote. So he decided to write a fake book as a joke, but it ended up coming out real. And now he kind of get into some trouble with that. And that's where the main crux of the story is, as it is. And, I don't think it's as misleading as people think it is because it does focus on that. But it ended up just being a nice slice of life, story about it. And they focus mostly on those side things. It's not as misleading as the show makes it to be because that's what it's about anyway. But it gets into the reality and bounce back and forth on that. Because to me, it does stick to the conceit and the premise within the advertising. I don't think it was necessarily misleading. I keep hearing a couple of people keep saying this, like, no, really, it was what it was. They stuck to this, but they went a little meta with it, and that's where this kind of go over the top for me. It goes meta with it, like it's still smart enough to not lean into that joke, no. And as I said, the counterpoint is could be as annoying as the point, and it fakes you out with that by saying no, there's a nice in between middle you could square away with this, and this character kind of pulls that off for the most part, and where they go with it, I think, is really strong stuff. I kind of love this. I didn't think I would have loved it as much as I did. Mostly because it's like, yeah, I myself, that I can't necessarily compare myself to some big PhD professor, but I myself kind of stuck in that situation about writing about what to do and how to square these things away. I can personally attest to some of this in some ways or the other, right? Me trying to be an aspiring author myself and whatnot. And yeah, it does really work as a doesn't lean into the premise too much. It's not too trying to be too funny. It doesn't lean to that joke or like, hey, look at these white idiots and look at these things. But it does address that in its conceit, like where they go with it. And there's a couple like good little moments and bits about is race, but the race matter, but it's not in the way you think. And a big back and forth. There's a last line that is great involving a vote. I'm like, wow, that is actually a really good like little observation and framing, and it's a smarter movie than people give it credit for, I think. But it's really good stuff, and yeah, everybody is great in this. Great character work. It actually reminds me of a little local filmmaker in terms of like what the storytelling is about. Yaramasa, it's similar to his movie in some ways. Fortune for All. Similar kind of beats in terms of.
Okay.
Think about it. Think about it.
The shout out, but explain. Mm-hmm.
No, think about it. It's three siblings. They bounce off each other. Dead father. Similar strained relationship stuff kind of thing now. There's an overlap there. Right. But yeah, why it works is, and then why it ultimately works is how where it's really subversive is how earnest it is in terms of like its ultimate, like what the underlying message of it is in terms of, well, yes, on the one end you could be all serious and do this thing above the board and black people blah blah blah, and that final like clash between him and Isari at the end is great. Like where they go with that, and where that argument is, and I look, several years ago I already landed on that position, but finally a movie like that should do it. Do I like this as much as it could be? It came out a little too late, I'll admit. Like I make the joke before. I think I made this joke before somewhere where there's an American Dad episode. Sorry, not American Dad. There's a Family Guy episode that's straight up just like this. With Brian, it doesn't.
You mentioned that when we were talking about the nomination list.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Right. But I think the original book for this came out like 20 years ago, so I think that's where set gate from now. But it's the same, it's a very similar idea about just kind of not selling out and doing a whole thing and faking your way through it and doing that whole halfway. You're not really sure where it should be. And they give a great metaphor with respect to drinks. Right. Same company will make the high end stuff. They'll make the middlebrow stuff and then they'll make the low-end stuff. But it's all the same company making it. And it have no good reason why it is you can't do all three now. And it's brilliant. And again, a lot of great framing. Like in terms of like, are we going to have this drink anymore? And you notice what he was drinking. Right? It's the red stuff. That's clever.
Yep.
So you could do red stuff, but you could also do blue stuff. I like that. It's a simple metaphor. It really, really works. It's clever. And I like his character. Was probably my favorite character in the show. Sterling K. Brown is excellent in this, where they go with him and the relationship with the brother, but then you see the brother's characterization, but the one figure that is entirely absent from the narrative is the father. And only when you reference the father at the end and you understand why he is the way he is. And the little conversations and little arguments you're having, you realize, all right, he just kind of trailing through the father's narrative. The stuff with the mother is great. The stuff with what's her name, boy, from Living Single? Shit. It's slipping my mind right now.
Erica.
Yeah, right.
Erica Alexander, sorry, yeah.
Erica Alexander, right, yeah. She was pretty good. Her bouncing back on what she was, and that conversation she had with him when she said she liked the book, but she didn't know he was the author.
Oh,
I thought that was pretty good too.
Great. Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good too, and it's a really good like conceit about creators and creativity and aspects of creativity, and they do the whole producers thing. It's a great like back and forth about that. There was a movie with Melissa McCarthy a few years back that also did something like this. Similar kind of idea.
I think she got an Oscar nom.
I think she got that for that too. And then they make it a nice slice of life kind of thing bouncing off when you learn the family. What they do really well, and it's interesting that Boston is the space for this, right? What they do really well is the whole idea of the working class. Because you get to see, even though he is upper middle class and he kind of hoity-toity, and the entire family real hoity-toity, and the brother is kind of trash in his own way, and the sister will go into the sister, that's the whole thing. But what the big thing is that you get to see black working class in Boston, and that framing of race in that context as as well.
Yeah.
And they make that work really well in terms of like, well, where that goes with the main and these little small things now. It's like, yeah, you don't have to like be. He is correct in the sense that you don't have to be like that in that way, but at the same time, that is not a unique experience. That's just one experience. And then when Issa Rae's character, they had their clash. That was pretty good too, like in terms of her perspective and where she comes from, and she's correct. She's also correct, and she kind of put him she correct him and put him in a better space of how to think about this now, and so on and so forth, and it works. What it is. Also cameos, great cameos. What they do with Keith David is brilliant. Loved it.
I love
that was
that. I know
absolutely hilarious.
We're not gonna spoil it.
Nah,
but,
yeah. But it's really really clever stuff, and it's a fun because it's not super funny, It's just like it get a smile out of me. It's chuckling, but it's still very smart, and I appreciate it. But it's not like it not have a rolling or anything like that. As I said, I think I mentioned this earlier, where there are a couple episodes of Atlanta that's like this. So I would argue the Mr. Chocolate episode is very similar to this. Like what they do with that, and they also call out, well, who Mr. Chocolate was making fun of back in Atlanta. They also call his name in this. Yeah, Tyler Perry. Like Tyler Perry is the person who I look at as the kind of the nexus of this material. On the one end, yes, you could dismiss Tyler Perry's material as being, really simplistic and condescending nonsense, and it's so dotish and it catering to the bottom right, the closest common denominator, and he just doing it for a bag, blah 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 blah. On the other end, yeah, but that's what the real reality is. A lot of people do go through lives like that, and they do have that. And yes, you could write a more complex story about black people. And I would like Tyler Perry to give some money to people who could make smarter and more interesting stories. And then but you could also have people who could live. We live in a post-Moonlight world where we did get that in a smart sense, and it didn't feel condescending or black struggly in any way. No, like I understand the complaints about black struggle, I get it, but you could have a halfway point, and you have to be smart enough, and as I say, you have to figure out a way to do both. You could make, as I say, you make Red Label. You don't have to make Blue Label, but you make Red Label. Great metaphor. It comes together really well. They make it work for what it is in terms of smart. Storytelling, and then when they go pretty meta with it at the ending with the quote unquote endings, and that I thought was funny in its own right. You can't know they was going there, but they do it and they recontextualize it in the storyline, and it works. And well, the quote unquote Michael Bay like director,
oh yeah,
he's straight. That guy's supposed to be Michael Bay, right? I don't know who they're making fun of there, like. That dude, they make it work for it.
Blatantly a reference to him, but it could just be the average white filmmaker who just want to make big budget shit.
No, but I can't think of anybody who else would cater to this in that way, because the only person I can think about that in terms of getting kind of flack for being not sensitive with respect to race, but you don't expect them to be, is either Michael Bay or, I would argue to a certain extent, Quentin Tarantino. Right? They're big, bombastic filmmakers in their own way, but they're also not really that great on race, and you're saying the N word a little too much in the movies.
Latter, I think you're on to something with the latter,
right?
Especially with the film that is being discussed, as all you'll see without spoiling anything. Yeah.
Right. And they make it work for what it is. It comes together. Jeffrey Wright is excellent. He really, really balances this. He goes through the paces of genuine emotion and shock. They write a smart script with it. I never read the original Erasure novel, so I don't know how close this is to the book. I'll probably make the effort to go back and read it. But I just thought this just as a script really flows really well. There's a small moment that I thought was very clever. The part when he met the guy for the first time and then he ran off because of the siren.
Right.
I thought that was very clever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was very, very clever how that comes together as a scene, because it's multiple emotions bounced off really well. And everybody just really works, and it have your focus and it's just a smarter script than I expected it to be. I was thinking it was just going to rely on the whole white people don't get it jokes. And there's a lot of those moments, but it's smarter than you think. And the small moments, it's small, it's quick. They don't linger on it. There's something at the end. There's a quick moment at the end. It's all right, that kind of clever too. Well, that's all I say involving a vote, and it's wow, and it's what the woman say right after about black voices. Are oh, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. They make it work for what it is. Yeah, I can't say I hate anything in this. I really, really liked it. I could see why it got its nominations and how it came together. I can't say it's some big comedy masterpiece or anything like that, but it's just a subtle side thing. It just relies on just the realities around it rather than the direct thing itself. Don't stick to that, and yeah, the advertisement, you know, does lead into that, but it leads into that in a more nested kind of layered way. There's a kind of Russian nesting doll kind of aspect to it too, especially with the meta aspects and especially the ending, like when the last scene of the movie, like okay, yeah, like that's where it should go. And there's a last little moment that I thought was very nice where the guy nods to him, and he nods back, and it's like that's good. That's interesting journey work and character work. Solid stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of loved it. Yeah, rating. Yeah, I'll give it like a really high score, like a 9 out of 10, or probably like a 8 out of 10. It's funny, but doesn't try to be too much. It's genuinely charming and comes together, I think, quite well. But at the same time, I felt it could have probably been resolved a little better in terms of where it could go. But I thought it's mostly satisfactory in terms of where it went and how they run through the options of what it could have been, and they make fun of that now. And so on and so forth. I mean, they probably, like, again, it's one of those things it's Hollywood talking about itself, so they patting themselves on the back, fine. But it still works for what they was trying to go for. So yeah, I really enjoyed it for what it was. Yeah, 9 out of 10.
All right, so because I want to really talk about the next film, right? Not saying that I don't have anything else to say about this, right? But you pretty much covered it for me, right? Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I did not expect the slice of life vibe of it though, but I feel like that to me is what really kept me invested. It kept me engaged. I like just how just laid back it is. It's not hitting you over the head with the messages and the themes and the emotions. It just kind of lets things play out really smoothly, right? Because yes, you will get some satire, you will get some slice of life stuff, some character building moments, but you also get some like soul crushing drama at some point. So like sporadically, right? Like I didn't expect the stuff involving Thelonious' family. That's all I'll say without spoiling anything, right? Yeah, I didn't know that they were going to go there, right? But you can see how that how that motivates him to write the book that he did, right? I like also too how fairly small scale this movie is, right? It's not like, oh my god, the world's gonna come to an end if people find out, who wrote this book. It's just a man who is doing well, but he
it's his own ego, eh?
That's true. And you can understand why why his career kind of floundered the way it is, right? I mean, yes, he's living a good life, much better than others. I could tell you that, right? But with all these unforeseen circumstances, you can understand in a way, why he would want to do something like this. But at the same time, it's like he wants to, like, really piss people off and kind of call them out on the bullshit, right? So that's why he writes the book in the first place. But he didn't really think that it would, the situation would implode the way it did, right? Even though
You're right.
There were moments where it's like, no, like dog, like what are you doing? Like even his agent's like, what are you doing, right? But he's like, no.
Well,
I really want to show
it have a couple moments. It have a couple moments that is just again, his boys. Yeah, he's saying his principles, but it's more ego than principles, I would argue. Especially like, okay, when he wanted to, he wanted to quote unquote escalate the situation for doing something.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, that's very more his ego than his principles. Another moment is I felt where he was thing is when he really got into a big moment where I thought he would have come out with it at that point when he was when the book got nominated.
Yeah.
He didn't think he would get through, but when he got it in the mail, I like, oh shit, again, it's as a judge. That means my book get nominated. And I like, all right, well,
that was a great moment to how much.
Yeah, that's a genuine like tough conflict of interest, and I can see where the ethical part is. Because I thought it was just going to be about the money. And like, yeah, if it's just about the money, that would be one thing. But this part is a whole thing about winning awards and so on and so on. He's a judge on his own award. Like, all right, well, it's a little too introspective aspect of it now. So he could get into a lot of trouble with respect to that. But again, I thought that's where it was going to go. With respect to him, like, effectively, taking the win and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Go
ahead. Yeah.
As far as the tone of it, right? Because yes, going into it, I thought it was just going to be about race, satire about the modern race game, if you will, right?
Right.
I like that the show was smart enough to say, yes, it could have been easy to do that. It could have been.
It's above that, right?
we want to do something a bit different. We want to do like an actual like character study. That's basically what it is.
Right.
Character study about this guy, and it could have just been simple, building basing around him writing this book. But nah. We really want to show you, like he's not that bad off, compared to the people that he does not want to, he doesn't want to exploit
Right.
them pretty much, right?
Exactly. But they make a good. I think Boston is a great place to reference this because Boston has a really fascinating like history of race in itself, and they make a small moment where you talk about it's not about race or something like that, and then the taxi passes him straight and picks up the other guy.
Yeah.
Like that's a small little thing. Like
yeah.
that's funny. Little things like that. Like
yeah.
alright,
And also-
and they make it work.
Yeah, and also I could be wrong with this, but I guess maybe I just need to rewatch it though. I kind of also see that slice of life aspect of the show kind of being a satire on itself.
Right.
On itself. Like I love how they set it up too, right? Where it's you might think that this is going to be about black struggle, but actually no, it's about progress in a sense, or at least somebody who is stuck somewhere and he kind of needs to get himself back on track, right? And that's not the type of show that will get a lot of attention, right? So
Right.
that there's this moment. I applaud the show for actually doing this, right? Basically showing us, without spoiling much, a montage of black struggle films by. I was like, wow,
Right, yeah.
are they actually doing this? Okay.
Yeah, no.
Wow. Like, blatantly saying, yes, these are black struggle films, but they're classics, and we love them, except for one problematic one. But, I mean, it was, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this show pretty much saying, it's not about that. It's about, like black progress. Like people who actually doing good in their lives, right? It's just this guy kind of still feels like he could do more. I like that there's this moment involving his mom. Well, it's actually the final moment in the film involving the two. Yeah, where she kind of tells
Right.
him, yeah, this is why you're stuck, right? Even people around him are moving forward, and he's just like, why am I not moving forward, right? And that's why I love the whole setup with the whole book thing, right? Yes, you are right. Jeffrey Wright is great at this. He holds the show on his shoulders, though. He's just so likable, Dread. Even when he going through his shit. I like that even when he does the identity, yeah, he even sells it physically, right? So there's this blink in the missing moment where like he's talking to the director, right? And the way how the scene is lit, Dread, like it's almost like half of his body is in shadow. Yeah, he kind of look kind of like a tough guy, though. The way how
Right,
he's
yeah,
presenting
exactly.
himself. I just watched this like wow, Dre. Like I wouldn't even thought about that in terms of like shooting a scene like that, right? But it totally works, right? But yeah, this is probably I would say one of the best performances he's ever given, though. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I am so happy that he at least got nominated, right? I mean, of course, he's not gonna win it. I mean, sorry, but I do hope. I guess maybe I should look it up. I do hope he won awards for his performance in this, right? I'd say that goes for Sterling K. Brown. Like I didn't expect this was the character
great.
to play, but I like
Yeah.
that. Again, you would think, oh well, if this was a black struggle film, he would be in, going through like this downward spiral, and he would be like, being an asshole. Well, he is an asshole, right? But you think that he would be so down in his luck that like he could be close to dying or whatever it is. But the show is like, no, he just kind of need to get his shit together. That's it. Don't bring in black struggle into this. Yes, we poking fun at it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Don't worry about
But
it.
that's the
You gotta
thing.
be good. You gotta be good.
The aspect. All right. So that's why it still somewhat works because they do the aspects of black erasure almost entirely. Like almost the entire cast is almost the entire cast is black. But they do something that is not quote unquote stereotypically black in terms of like the older maid, the mother going through, what we're going on with the mother, the older maid who get married. There's a whole thing with her. The what do you call it? The brother going through nothing had nothing to do with being black at all, right? And so on and so forth, right? And so it's stereotypically, quote unquote white things, but not really. It's just a default thing that anybody could go through, but it's not in the context of what he was trying to do. So he is correct in that. But then again, Issa Rae, I think, is the perfect casting for this and putting her in this role.
I
her
forgot that she was in the film though, and like the character that she plays is great though. And yes, I have to echo what you said. That conversation that she has with Jeffrey Wright's character, fantastic. I love it. There's so much layers into it, and like
it's a smarter.
I just like hearing it and like, all right, like I feel like if I just watch this scene like 3-4 more times, I'll get everything. But I just love the complexity of that scene, even if I don't understand every single aspect being brought up, but just I have the gist of what's going on, and just in the context of the film, totally works. I love that scene. Yeah.
Yeah. As I said, there's layers to this. I mean, I could see parts of this where the movie does have the pitfalls of satire and what to talk about and why. Again, it's still have the same producer's problem, right? Like we're gonna go in terms of the resolution, and the ending with him is an interesting space for him to go to. And I thought like that last part where he basically nods to the
Yeah,
when he nods to the guy,
to the guy.
to the extra.
Yeah.
It's extra effectively, but what the extra is, I'm like, all right, I get it. I get it. Like I get it.
As far as that last like 10 minutes, I would say go. Didn't see it coming. At first, I
Right.
was like, especially climax. I was like, this is. I don't know if this working for me. And like, it's a little
Right.
too meta for me. But when you see the outro now, you're like,
Right.
oh, okay, that's why they do it like that. Oh,
Right.
okay, I get it all right.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, you know the oh yes, I should mention too. Before I get to written, not familiar with the source material, so I can't say that it deserves best adapted screenplay. I still think that Oppenheimer's gonna win it. That's just me. What I was surprised by was the score, boy. When I see who did it, I was like, wait,
Right.
that's you,
Yeah.
Laura Kathmandu. Like what?
Yeah.
I just associate you with, the Marvels and What If and Lovecraft County, sorry. I just associate you with stuff like that there. I hear this smooth ass jazz music trend. I'm like, who do this? And I seen Laura Cartman, they're like, wood. So, yeah, I kind of rooting for she to win. Don't mind. I think that this could be Ludwig Göransson's win off of Oppenheimer.
Right.
But I loved the score for this too. It's just so smooth and laid back though. And it just adds to the, I want to say, mostly feel good vibe of this, right? Because yeah, even though there are heavy moments, yeah, it's a movie you can kind of kick back and relax and sip some wine and or whatever it is and just enjoy the ride of it, right? I like that, it gives you these slice of life moments, it gives you the comedy, though it's not gut busting laughter, but it's like, haha, that's really clever, right?
Right.
It gives you the moments of seriousness and, just the reality being, explored there. I like how it just flows though. It just has a nice flow to it, right? So yeah, I really dug that film for that, right? And yeah, overall, I kind of love this film as well, right? So this easily would have been in my, not in my top 10, but this would have been in my
Yeah.
top 20, not a honorable mention. This actually would have been on my list, man. So for me,
Okay.
rated
Yeah.
wise, strong 4 to a very, very light 4.5 out of 5. Admittedly,
Yeah,
this is one that I need to rewatch too, because I feel like if I watch it over, I will notice some more things. I'm just going off of a first impression, right? I feel like, I might think about it after we talk about it, and I'll be like, but still, I feel like I could have fixed this or I could have seen this a little better. But
Right.
if I watch it again, I'm like, all right, okay, they set that up a lot better. All right, much better than I expected. Okay, I can let that slide, right? So, yeah, I really enjoyed this, man. But yeah, don't go in expecting this to be full satire, right? I say that would have been the easy way to tell the story, but I'm not familiar with the source material, right? But I'm glad that it is that and so much more, man. And yeah, there's so much more worked, man. It really, really worked in the context of the film itself. So yeah, absolutely enjoy this, man. All right, so I would love to talk about the Book of Clarence, right?
Sure.
I'll do the synopsis first, right? I'll just share my thoughts afterwards, right? So yeah, saw the trailer for it. There were quite a few times. I was like, all right, this is different. Okay, yeah, my boy Lakeith Stanfield did it. All right, cool. But really, the two sells for me with this, right? One, James is that's how you pronounce his name.
James. I think it's just James.
Right? James, right?
James Samuel.
Samuel,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, who dropped one of my favorite films of 2021, I believe it was. That will be The Harder They Fall, right? Which was this. Yeah, it's a black western, but not a black exploitation western. That's the best way to sum it up.
Right.
Yeah. And this one seeks to do the same thing, but within the framework of the biblical epic, right? So what this is about, right? It's about Clarence, right? Who is, I didn't even know this going in, the twin brother of the Apostle Thomas, right?
Right.
And
Right.
he is just this kind of hustler, he just trying to get by, trying to just survive, you know what I mean? And I like the fact that it's mostly black actors in this film, and where it's set now, in Jerusalem, yeah, it's just, African people there, right? So, at first, I was like, all right, like, should I really care about this? But it was like a kind of a nitpick at first, but I was like, you know what, forget, right? Yeah, well, the kid seems to be one of the only like, he and I think it's he and somebody else, like, the only people who talk like, African American.
Right.
Everybody else have
Yeah,
either
African
have
accents.
African
And Nigerian,
accents,
yeah.
yeah, Nigerian and
Yeah.
whatnot, right? I was like, should I really care about this? But I was like, you know what?
I don't know why that was a weird trailer. I noticed that.
It's like, all right, whatever. It's different. That's what it is, right? And yeah,
Right.
like just from the word go, like it tells you, yeah, this is not gonna be an average biblical film, right? So what's up, right? So this is around the time. This is in AD 33, right? So this is the scene where Jesus is about to be, put to trial and crucified, right? So
Right.
yeah, all around people hearing about all the wondrous things that Jesus is doing. But yeah, he's an atheist, so he doesn't believe in none of that, and it's so interesting because he never even met the man. He never met Jesus, right? But his brother, is one of the apostles, right? And he always brings up every time he runs into him. Yeah, you actually left our mother to go and follow this man, right? I like that as a team, right? That as motivation for him to not believe in Christ, right? So him and his friend now, who is played by R.J. Seiler. I was like, hey, I remember you, right.
Yeah, only for them from Harder the Followers.
Right. Yes. Yeah. They run into some trouble with this gangster, pretty much, right, by the name of Jebediah the Terrible. I'm not familiar with the actor, but I am assuming that he is African because he had an African accent, right? Yeah. So it's like, you know what, you had to pay me this money, and if you don't, I'll kill you. And your time is almost up, so you had to do something, right? So he hatched this plan, right? And slight spoiler, the inspiration came through, a little weed trip that he had, right? Some weed that, yeah, can you sell a little weed on the side, right? Yeah, he's going to pretend to be Jesus, right? He's going to go around and, play like he is the son of God, right? In the process, he runs into this gladiator by the name of Barabbas. Not the actual Barabbas, but like basically it's a Spartacus type Barabbas, played by my boy Omar Sy. I was like, hey, Omar Sy.
I thought it was the same. I thought it was the same person. I thought he was supposed to be playing the same person.
It's supposed to be, but
right.
Right, so I'll get to that in my review, right? But they more fashion him off of Spartacus, right?
Right.
Yeah, that even where they find him and the circumstances which led to him being freed, all that's from Spartacus. All that's Spartacus shit, right?
Yeah.
I know because I love Spartacus, right? But anyway. And yeah, him and his friend Elijah, that's his name, right? Yeah, go around in town and everybody believing that he's Jesus. He performing fake miracles, all that kind of stuff, right? So later on, you realize now that that the Romans now, right? Trying to drum out all the messiahs, right? Yeah, because they heard about Jesus, all that kind of stuff. God, the plan is that they're gonna crucify all of them, right? Because yeah, they go against their teachings and whatnot, right? And in the process, the actual Jesus himself is there, right? Yes, I like the fact that I like the fact, that he is black. I'm not familiar with the actor at all. His name is
so the thing is, they make these characters explicitly black, and that's an interesting kind of choice. I'm not surprised it's Jim Samuel, but not since Color the Cross we ever had that kind of conceit, no. If you remember Color the Cross, this was
yes. Which
I only see the first one. I never watched the sequels or anything like that. But basically, Color the Cross, the first one, is just the idea of explicitly black Jesus. The problem is one of those movies that take too long to come out. I think if we saw it in the 90s, it would be a bigger deal. But it came out 2006. It's like, all right, well,
I'm gonna talk about that. I'm gonna talk about the title of the show here too, right? And yeah,
right, but
Go on.
But it just the aesthetic of a black Jesus, or black Jesus, black everybody. In fact, from this area, the world. Like I'm not impressed with the whole black Jesus narrative. It's more like, well, he had to be like what Palestinian would look like today, effectively.
Yeah.
Not white, but still. But yeah,
it's the whole olive skin thing. That's
right. But yeah, so it's interesting that they make him very explicitly, black, in the narrative as it is, and a lot of the framing feels like how the Color of the Cross was. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, right. And yeah, just basically just seeing Clarence, because the whole theme of it is that he just doesn't have faith, right? He doesn't believe in these miracles. He doesn't believe in the power of God and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, throughout the film, he kind of understands what it means, right? To to be the Messiah, right? And I'll stop there, right? So let me just get it good out to the way, right? I think that directing wise, James Samuel shows why he is, yeah, he's yeah, filmmaker. You should really keep your eye on though. Like just the shot composition works. Just the opening sequence, right, which is a chariot race, right?
Right.
He just makes that scene so incredibly dynamic, though, that to the point that
Yeah,
I
you just
swear
put
that he literally remake Ben-Hur. But if you remember,
right.
there was already a remake of Ben-Hur, which I heard was trash and I never
Yeah,
bothered
that's real
watching.
trash. I see that.
I
That's
mean,
trash.
the original is timeless to me, so why even bother remake it? I don't care if Morgan Freeman it. I'm not gonna watch that shit, right? But yeah, just where he put the camera in some shots, and they're like, what? Okay, yeah, I like this, right? And just how he just nails the epic scope and feel of, all right, we're telling this biblical story, right? Yeah, he comes through with solid direction here, right? Writing, however, but I'll get to that, right? Performances, I thought was solid across the board. Lakeith Stanfield is believable as both Clarence and Thomas. Even though you don't see much of Thomas, I like when you see the two of them together. When you see two of the two characters together, I love those moments. Yes, I know it's camera trickery and whatnot, right? But it's the characterization that I
Yeah, they feel like two different people.
Two different people, right? Omar Sy is a standout as Barabbas, though. He's funny. I like that he managed to keep the French accent. I like that he's not trying to sound, British or whatever it is. Like, the man talking French accent and whatnot, and he gave lines through. He had some great lines. The man even drop a F-bomb out to the blue, like, what? Okay.
There's a really funny bit with him, when he declared, he said, you want to be the Messiah, and he said, what, nigga? That's funny.
Yeah, he said, what, nigga? Yeah, that was great. I was surprised to see McGill Anna Diop from Titans.
Right.
I was like, hey, you need to do more work, Trent. You need to do more work, because, Titans ended last year on the woman note, but whatever. Yeah, I like Cedar. I like Cedar. I mean, she fine, in my opinion, right? I didn't expect to see all these other actors like David Oyelowo. I didn't expect to see.
Oyelowo.
Sorry about that. I didn't expect to see Caleb McLaughlin from Stranger Things. Like, hey,
Right.
good. I didn't expect to see McGill, Tiana Taylor in it. And when it comes to like the white people in the show, didn't expect to see James McAvoy in it, but when he's there, he's great. He plays Pontius Pilate, and there's a surprise character that shows up. I'm not gonna say who the actor is, but when he shows up, it's like, all right, okay. The only downside to it though is that the show he named earlier on say that's there waiting, but I didn't know he was that character, admittedly. But what they do with him is very, very clever. It didn't have a rolling it didn't have a like laughing my ass off, but it's clever. It's silly, but it's clever.
I saw him in the beginning, so I was like, oh, that's not that fella.
Right, well, I didn't know it was him because I wasn't really thinking about him. It was just like,
yeah,
you just a side character who will show up later on because.
No, well, he was in the beginning, he was on the cross. And I was watching the face and like that. I think it looking like him.
Well, I didn't notice him on the cross, to be honest, right?
All right, no problem.
Right. And I'll close this, right? And yeah, Lakeith Stanfield is really going back to him, right? As Clarence, he is quite believable. I like the lack of faith and doubt, the doubt that he has. It feels very organic. It doesn't feel like shoehorn or whatnot. You can understand why a man like him just won't believe, right? And how skeptical he is, right? And even the transformation he goes through makes sense, right? In the world of this, right? That being said, right? While I do appreciate the film for referencing other biblical films, right? Because that's what the show does, right? It kind of pays tribute to stuff like Ben-Hur, like I say with the introduction, Ten Commandments, a little bit of it. Right down to the greatest story ever told, classic film, from Pier Paolo Pasolini, a more realistic, down-to-earth depiction of Jesus Christ, right? Love that film, right? But the two films that I would compare this to, right, are Life of Brian, which is obvious, right? The whole idea that people think I'm the Messiah, but I'm not the Messiah, and as a joke, ha ha ha. But like in Life of Brian, it was him, the character, basically saying, no, I am not the Messiah. But the joke surrounding the film is that, yeah, pretty much everybody is stupid, and like even right down to like the robots were dumb. So that's how a guy like him, who keep saying that he is not the Messiah, eventually get crucified, right? And then you get that classic song, always look at the bright side of life, right? Classic moment, right? But I'll also compare this to a little movie called The Last Temptation of Christ from Scorsese, which is a show that I rewatched last year, Good Friday, and I ended up like loving the film, right? Because famously is one of those films that you always hear about. Oh, it's so controversial, and oh, like what's saying, right? And I remember seeing it for the first time, and I was like taken aback. I wasn't sure what to make about it, right? It was just so weird and baffling to me. I wasn't sure what it was about, right? But when I rewatched it again last year with mature eyes, I was like, no, I get where this man coming. I get where Martin was coming from. This makes sense, right? So basically, what it is in a nutshell, it's kind of showing you a realistic take on the idea of what Christ is or what he represents, right? So in layman's terms, it's almost like the show is looking at every atheist in the world and saying, all those questions you have about Christ, this show will answer it for you. It's not going to make you believe in it in the story, but at least you'll understand why we believe in it, right? You'll understand the story behind it. The most important question being, why would God, who is the Father of Christ, send his Son to die for us? What's the point of that, right? And how the show answers that is brilliant in my opinion, right? Yes, it deserves its R-rated though, because they do some stuff which is very bold, very daring, right? But in the context of the show, it makes a lot of sense, right? So it's almost like you give him like a grounded, realistic take on it, but at the same time, you're showing many miracle stuff. And it's kind of weird when you see it in the context of it, because remember,
Right.
it's plain realistic, right? And this show, which this movie also references to, the Passion of the Christ does that too as well, right? Where it wants to show everything real, but when it comes to the wonders stuff, it's kind of fantastical, right? But that's the point. It's kind of supposed to be like that, right? When you see it in film form. That's the best way I could sum it up, right? I could see this is where James was referencing, right? Especially with Last Temptation. I feel this was the show he was latched on to, right? Where he kind of where he's kind of trying to explain to you, yes, why people would believe in Christ and why they will believe in his miracles and all that kind of stuff and why they will follow him and all that kind of stuff, right? And I do praise him for showing it in, using race in terms of it, right? So, yes, you have your majority of the characters being black. Yes, you could argue for days that, the white people in the show are bad, they are...
Well, they do a lot of, like, the Roman as police stuff,
right,
in this.
Exactly, yes. And they do touch on, they do have a few Black Lives Matter references here or there, right?
Right.
One in particular, during the crucifixion scene, when I see it, I was like, all right, I get, but I mean.
Right.
And that's where I have a problem with this show, though. I felt like tonally and thematically and narrative-wise, it was just all over the place. So it couldn't settle on one specific idea. Take Last Temptation of Christ. The show says at the very beginning, this is not meant to be, exactly the way how the story was shown in the Bible, but this is just a realistic version, or at least a version of how to look at it from a logical perspective, right? That's basically what it is. They tell you that right out the gate, right? Here, the show kind of forces you to try to figure out what tone you're going for. So at first you think it, all right, so it's referencing stuff like Ben-Hur. So okay, it's paying tribute to biblical films. But then at the same time, it wants to poke fun at them. So it kind of wants to do the Life of Brian stuff. So we kind of poking fun at Christianity in a bit, but we also kind of poking fun at Romans and how stupid they were back then, right? We kind of want to do that too. But you also want to do the greatest story ever told, where we've seen how the common man could really, side with Christ and really be, wowed by him, right? But you also want to do Passion of the Christ, right? Where you're kind of showing us the brutality.
Yeah, you could tell he wanted to do. Yeah, it was a kind of Christian movie gumbo. You could tell that.
Yeah,
like he was trying to do everything.
Yeah. And
he was referencing all CCB DeMille stuff,
exactly,
like with the titles.
Yes,
here's another mistake.
Which I like, but
yeah,
here's another problem. Also, slight spoiler, right? Bro, you show the title once, right? You don't need to show it again, I'm just saying. I know you want to do the Ten Commandments shit. I get.
Yeah.
But you showed the title before. You don't need to show it again.
Right.
That's all I'll say, right? But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. But another thing I think I had the same problem with Harder They Fall is like, dude, lead with the soundtrack. Great soundtrack. Why you didn't do that? Yeah. But it had been great.
Talking about the soundtrack, right? Liked it, didn't love it, right? But there are a few moments where, okay, so, and again, with tune, right? You want to bring in like a contemporary vibe to it, right? So there's a moment involving a dance, right? And while
Right.
I love the song. I know it was sample. I forget the name of the song, but it's a Talib Kweli song that I absolutely love, right? It's this sort of like soulful disco song, right? When you hear it, you'll love it, right? You'll know what I talk about. But in the context of the show, one, the show stops to have this musical number, and two, again, because of the world, the frame here, you kind of have to bring in logic into it. So I just there watching this, I like, so where the music coming from? Like you don't
Yeah, it's a
see a
party.
band,
Yeah.
you don't see people performing it on a stage.
Yeah.
You're just hearing that music, and I supposed to think, what? There's a DJ somewhere spinning this?
Nah,
There's a
yeah,
song from the
it's just them.
70s. So I like, well,
I just assume they're high. I just assume they're high because they're smoking weed right through.
and speaking of of that, right? Okay, I have no problem with the drug content in it, right? Okay, you want to make it contemporary, fine, right? But there's a moment literally where people getting high and floating, and they're like,
Right.
why are we doing this? And I get
Yeah.
it in relation to the character of Clarence is moments where there are fantastical things that happen to him. They're not miracles, but they're fantastical things that happen to him, and they kind of connect to his journey in the film without spoiling. But
Right.
it's just there, like it just kind of stands out, like why? Like I don't understand. Like I don't understand it, right? The black representation of biblical characters, I have no problem with. Even Black Jesus, I don't mind Black Jesus. I don't mind that, right?
Right.
Even he threw in a little insult, a real like hard job though. And what the apostles catch me off guard by work, right? Also,
Yeah.
as far as direction goes, how they emphasize the Last Supper, just visually though, that was hard.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
real hard, right? Unfortunately, though, the context behind it, like what's being spoken, because it's leading up to the whole Judas thing and the betrayal stuff, it didn't work for me. It didn't
Yeah.
work, right? Because, again, is the narrative and where it's going, right? Last thing I'll say before I get to it, right? I was looking up some reviews of it, right? And I stumbled on this one from this Christian reviewer, right? And he was saying, he actually makes really some valid points. Right? He was saying that the show was leaning towards 5% thinking, right? And what 5%, what the 5% movement is like, or, belief is, or religion is, right? Or faith, sorry. It's an offshoot of Islam, right? But it's basically this whole idea
Right.
that, all the black man is God and the white man is the devil, right? That's basically what it is, kind of blatantly in a nutshell, right? It's stuff that, the Wu-Tang, like they are based in 5% of beliefs and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
incorporated into their music, all that kind of stuff, right? So I have no problem with that, right? Believe what you want to believe, whatever, right? Cause I noticed there were moments where they were saying, where it is by oh gosh, peace be unto you, unto
Right.
you peace, right? So it's that assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam, whatever it is, right? Sorry for butchering, I'm sorry, right? But notice that too, right? But there's also moments where, yeah, they kind of set up this idea that, the black man is God. So it kind of explains why on Clarence's journey, he kind of becomes like, Christ, even though he isn't Christ, right? Because I was
Right.
kind of wondering how they're going to relate him to the real Christ, but they're saying, oh, well, he kind of becomes Christ because he have...
Well, I
It's
thought it was
that.
strange. I thought it was strange that he was the brother of Thomas. The
Yes.
whole Doubting Thomas thing, though.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So I thought that was unusual to me. I was like, oh, where they going with this? Why
Yeah.
why they do that?
But-
Why
but-
him?
but-
Why
but,
not? Why not the twin of Peter, or whatever it is, right? I don't know.
So the point is, I'm not saying that James and his team can't incorporate those themes though, but again, it's just tone and message of what it is you're trying to say, right? And even stylistically, it's just all over the place, right? You want to be a parody of biblical films, so that's why you have like the dance sequence and the weed sequence, all that kind of stuff, right? You want to make it contemporary, that's fine. I don't mind hearing Jay-Z in a biblical film, no problem. You want to be comedic, but it's not entirely comedic, right? Because yeah, there are moments of drama that hit really hard, right? Or moments of violence that don't hit as hard as all that, but they're there, right? And then especially when it gets the third act and the whole crucifixion stuff, right? So ultimately, I'm not really sure how serious I'm supposed to take it, or if I should take it seriously at all. And then, like, just lastly, I just felt like message-wise, though, it was just all over the place. It just couldn't really stick to a proper message. If you want to bring in the 5% of stuff, okay, fine, but you could set that up a lot earlier, right? Instead of going through all this drama. I don't know if it's meant to mock Christ. I don't think it is, but
No, I
I
didn't get that at
understand
all.
some
Yeah.
people kind of watch this and say, wait, what are you trying to say, right? Again, it's just, again, at the end of the day, whether it's the narrative, whether it's the team, or whether it's the references to other films, I'm not really sure what James is trying to say with this film, right? But I could see the passion and effort that he put into this. I could tell, you could tell it's a passion project. You could tell it's something that he really wanted to do. But like you, Ricardo, I agree. This is probably something that could have come out in the 90s or something like that. But I feel like because of the big controversy that still remains around something like, Last Temptation of Christ, right? Yeah, maybe that's why filmmakers wouldn't want to do something like this. What, a movie about a black Christ and about a Messiah who's going around pretending to be Christ? No, we can't touch that, right? And you'll see, like, with when the Passion of Christ came out, that was way more controversial and way less tolerable to watch than something like Last Temptation of Christ. Those deserve to be controversial, right? But this one, not saying that it wants to be controversial or whatnot, but it wants, like, it's trying to, like, get away, it wants to raise discussion over it, right? But I don't know,
Right.
like, I just don't know what to discuss from it. I don't know really what to say about it thematically because, again, I'm not really sure what it's trying to say. What is it trying to say about Christianity? What is it trying to say about black people? I don't know. I can't really tell, right?
Right.
Yeah, so overall messages were just all over the place. The references, the tone was just all over the place for me. So I really couldn't get into this as much as I wanted to. But I saw the passion, I saw the effort that he was putting into it. And yeah, I want to see James do more ambitious films like that though. But I really feel like he just needs to sit down with his next project and really decide, okay, this is what I want to tell. This is the films I want to reference. This is the vibe I want to go for. And that's it, right? So for me, rating wise, fortunately, I had to give this a strong 2.5 out of 5. But see it if you want to. I mean, it's all digitally. See it. I guess I could understand why it was pulled from local theaters before it even come out. 'Cause I don't think like it would have stirred controversy or whatnot. But I don't think people would have really get it or care about it, to be honest. But I watched it. I was like, all right, that was it. Really would have liked it. But if the movie was more focused, then I really would have appreciated it. But for now, it's just
Correct.
neither here nor there for me. So, Ricardo, take it away. Tell me how wrong I am.
No, yeah, I largely agree with you actually. I thought it's a little on the aimless end of it. It's a lot of style over substance, in my humble opinion. I get what you're going for, but it's a lot of scenes, and the problem is that I am no big religious man myself. I grew up as a very 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 lapsed Catholic, right? So I can't keep up with this stuff. But like on the intellectual end, to try to get into some kind of conceit, much like with Harder They Fall, when you realize quickly how it's not meant to be historically accurate or cater to any kind of historical realism or verisimilitude or anything like that. I kind of give up on this in that sense as well. It's like, so we trying to say as a subject and what Christ is a subject and how Clarence is as a reference to the subject and the idea of like at best I'm trying to say it have a bunch of messiahs at the time, which I know that was the case at the time. In the historical accuracy of it, I suppose that you could just be a man of sacrifice, and that's the conceit. I'm not sure. You don't have to believe, but you could be just a man of nobility because you cater to freeing the slaves or ending violence or whatever it is. That is the only thing I could have pulled from that, especially with Benedict Cumberbatch's character and what they do with that. Okay. So it was a bit helter skelter in that sense. There's a lot of style over substance. As I said, I wish they hyped the album before the movie. But yeah, it didn't. I didn't hate this. Like it was just, and I was enjoying it. It made me pay attention. It was a good bunch of ideas about it. But again, yes, you're right. It needed to be more focused and have for lack of a better term, have a message. What it is you're trying to say if you're making a Jesus story or tell it from another person's perspective. And it was interesting, as I said. I thought they would have done more with this. Having him be the twin brother of Thomas, because Thomas is the one who's the most like spurless of perspectives. He's supposed to be the skeptic. He's supposed to be the one. His gospel is a whole thing. There's a whole drama with that, and so on and so forth. And yeah, so I didn't hate this or anything like that. But at the same time, I really thought we would get something more focused and better. Like Harry Ford had a clear arc. this needs a much clearer arc, and I couldn't really follow through what they were trying to do or go for as it is. But yeah, I
But
still
before you get to it, any thoughts on just the performances or the direction in general?
yeah, no, yeah, everybody was great. Like I didn't have a problem with that. I enjoyed the musical numbers. It was just a vibes. And I think the movie was a style over something. It's a vibes movie, much like Harder the Fall was. Like Harder the Fall, I remember Harder the Fall had this weird sequence where it's like dancers and thing. It was that. It had that. Like it's a
Right.
thing. And I
It was
get
in a saloon or something like that, I think. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know why Clarence is so framed as being like a proto Jesus before Jesus do it. So I don't know if it's I couldn't follow why Jesus is in relation to Clarence because Jesus is about to do the same thing Clarence was supposed to do because he died the same way, but he bring him back to life. Yeah, I couldn't follow
I don't know.
where it's going.
Yeah.
I couldn't follow it, to be honest. I already myself couldn't follow. But again, because I don't know what to look for as a from biblical scholarship or anything like that, it has some interpretation of biblical scholarship that maybe was doing that. Like the people who had this reference with respect to that is probably like a Dan McClellan or Bart Ehrman or somebody like that. That is as far as I remember, right, in just understanding this material. But as it is, I couldn't get into it and I couldn't really follow ultimately what was the point, to be honest. But it wasn't bad. Like at no point, I think that good acting and everybody was bouncing off each other. And at best, I could say the message is that you don't have to be of divinity to be good. I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I can pull exactly what was the core conceit here. I mean, remind me, killing
I
us.
should mention one last thing though. Sorry to cut you there, right? Where I felt also where the show a missed opportunity, was Fate, because there's a moment where
Right.
Mary, who's played by Alfred Woodard of all people, mentioned, he has no fate, right? So I thought,
Right.
well, eventually he will, get the fate there or learn to have faith.
Well, that's a big part of it because I know they was pushing the whole faith versus knowledge idea.
Yes.
Concept and well he knew that God exists, not that he just believe God exists, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And because I saw some of that, and that's what they're trying to pull from. Right, I suppose. But yeah, as I said, I wish it was a little more focused. It could have worked better. I didn't hate it. I was enjoying a lot of it. I was enjoying the comedy was good. It was bouncing off each other. But yeah, it could have really come together better than that. And I was enjoying it for what it was. But yeah, rating 7 out of 10. I mean, it would have been an honorable mention for if it came out last year. I saw it last year. But yeah, that's about it.
Okay.